Mr. Lyons, when China has a federal conviction for stealing blueprints and then fields an aircraft that looks remarkably similar, do you think that resemblance is a coincidence?
No, sir. I'm very familiar with Subin and the case, and it was not only the J-35, but it was the Y-20. It was the drone technology that mimics our MQ-9s and our Predator drones. It's all gone.
China didn't need to solve the physics problems from scratch. It just needed to steal the answer. When America spends decades innovating, but China copies us in years and steals from it, that is not competition. It is being a parasite.
Okay, so you just saw that clip, and if that didn't make you stop scrolling, I don't know what will. What you just watched is Senator Ted Cruz at a Senate hearing, laying out with actual receipts how China has been robbing America blind for decades. Not just stealing sneaker designs or knockoff handbags. We're talking F-35 fighter jet blueprints, drone technology, artificial intelligence secrets. The literal backbone of American military superiority. And I'll be upfront with you right now, I think Cruz nailed this. The way he structured that argument, walking through conviction after conviction, side-by-side aircraft comparisons, dollar figures most people can't even process, that is not grandstanding. That is a senator doing his job. Between $400 billion and $600 billion lost every single year. The FBI opening a new China counterintelligence case every 12 hours. These are not talking points. These are government estimates and federal court records. And here's what gets me. This shouldn't even be a left or right issue. If someone is picking your pocket every single day, it doesn't matter what party you belong to. You should want it to stop. So before we dive into the full reaction, do me a favor. If you think America's technology and national security actually matter, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and let's get into it because the full video is even more damning than that clip.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last month, a Chinese telecommunications agency, Hytera, was fined $50 million in federal court for stealing American technology. In January of this year, a Google engineer was convicted of stealing artificial intelligence secrets for the Chinese government. This is not a pattern of isolated incidents. This is a coordinated campaign directed by the Chinese Communist Party to steal its way to global dominance. Mr. Cohen, both the U.S. government and private sector analysts estimate that the American economy loses between $400 billion and $600 billion each and every year due to China intellectual property theft. Is that correct? Can you turn the mic on?
That's the estimate by the U.S. government and others, yes.
And is it correct that the Chinese Communist government is widely regarded as the world's most aggressive thief of intellectual property, stealing and copying everything from sneaker designs to plans for military aircraft?
I would not agree that it's necessarily the Communist Party. There are incentives that the party or the leadership puts in place that people avail themselves of.
Is it the Chinese government?
It could be the Chinese government, it could be local governments, but that's not necessarily the party saying going out to steal.
And the Chinese government is controlled by the Chinese Communist Party?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And hasn't the FBI described China's intellectual property theft as the largest transfer of wealth in human history?
Yes, it has.
Given the scope of the attack on our economy, does it surprise you that the FBI opens a new China-related counterintelligence investigation roughly every 12 hours?
Is that the current data? I know that was during the China initiative. I don't know if that's the current data, but it was running about once every 12 hours or 24 hours.
And does it surprise you that roughly 80% of the prosecutions brought by the Department of Justice for economic espionage involve conduct that benefits China?
Not at all.
Mr. Lyons, theft is not just about lost profits. It changes the battlefield. Let's walk through what stolen innovation looks like in practice. To my right, you'll see some of the most advanced military platforms ever produced by the United States. On the left, their Chinese counterparts. First, the F-35, the cornerstone of America's air dominance. To its side is China's J-35. Now, it may be possible that two independently developed fighters might naturally converge on similar shapes. But criminal convictions speak louder than theories. Su Bin, a Chinese national, pleaded guilty in a United States federal court to stealing F-35 technical data and selling it to Beijing. Not a coincidence, a conviction. Mr. Lyons, when China has a federal conviction for stealing blueprints and then fields an aircraft that looks remarkably similar, do you think that resemblance is a coincidence?
No, sir. I'm very familiar with Su Bin and the case, and it was not only the J-35, but it was the Y-20. It was the drone technology that mimics our MQ-9s and our Predator drones. It's all gone.
China didn't need to solve the physics problems from scratch. It just needed to steal the answer. When America spends decades innovating, but China copies us in years and steals from it, that is not competition. It is being a parasite. Next, as you mentioned, we have the MQ-9 Reaper. It can loiter high above the battlefield for more than 20 hours, watching enemy movements in real time. It carries precision missiles that allow the United States to strike terrorists, enemy vehicles, and strategic targets without putting American pilots at risk. Mr. Lyons, how long did it take the United States to develop the MQ-9 Reaper?
2 decades, I would think.
And China's GJ-2. Mr. Lyons, does that represent Chinese engineering ingenuity or simply American engineering stolen and repackaged?
It's repackaged American technology, and Senator, if I could, I think that this is occurring across our energy field, our telecommunications field, our solar energy, wind energy, our transport, logistics. And when you step back, what we're seeing is a desire to dominate the industries that win wars.
Just this week, I met with the CEO of a major commercial space company in Texas, who described every year more and more of his budget is going to just defending against Chinese cyber hacking because they're expending millions and millions of dollars trying to hack into his systems every day to steal every single technology they're developing. That's one private company that is being replicated across the private sector. In fact, Mr. Chairman, the very last case I argued before the U.S. Supreme Court was a case called Global Tech versus SEB, and it dealt with Chinese IP theft. My client in that case in private practice was a French housewares manufacturer who had a U.S. patent on a deep fryer. And a Chinese company purchased the deep fryer in Hong Kong, disassembled it, reverse engineered it, and then marketed in the U.S. market and sold deep fryers that flagrantly infringed on that patent, and they made millions of dollars as a result. Now, thankfully, we won that case 8-1, and my client received a judgment of compensation. But this is a pattern that is far-reaching, and the consequences for our economy are massive, and the consequences for our national security, if anything, are greater. Thank you.
Excellent point.
All right. We just watched the whole thing, and I have a lot to say. First, let's appreciate what Cruz did there, because it wasn't just a speech. It was a prosecution. He walked into that hearing with visual evidence, federal conviction records, expert witnesses, and hard numbers, and he built a case the way a lawyer builds one, because he is one. That matters because these hearings so often turn into politicians reading prepared statements nobody listens to. Cruz came in with a strategy. He showed those side-by-side images of the F-35 and China's J-35, the MQ-9 Reaper and China's GJ-2, and he didn't just say they look similar. He said there is a federal conviction to go along with that resemblance. Su Bin, guilty in a U.S. federal court. End of debate. That line he dropped. China didn't need to solve the physics problems from scratch. It just needed to steal the answer. That hit because it's true. America spent decades and billions developing these platforms. Generations of engineers and scientists poured their lives into this work. And China just took it. Years, not decades. That's not competition. That's what Cruz called it, parasitic, and he's right. Now, some people will say every country spies, and sure, intelligence gathering is as old as warfare. But the scale here is incomprehensible. $400 to $600 billion a year. The FBI called this the largest transfer of wealth in human history. That's not a talking point. That's the FBI's own words. What also stood out was the testimony about how far beyond military hardware this goes. Energy, solar, wind, telecommunications, transport, logistics. Cruz made the point, and it landed hard. China isn't stealing randomly. It is targeting the exact industries that win wars. That is a long game being played with terrifying patience. Then there's that moment about the space CEO in Texas spending more and more of his budget every year just defending against Chinese cyberattacks. Not growing his business, not investing in new tech, just protecting what he already built. And that's one company. Multiply that across the entire private sector, and the damage is staggering. I also appreciated how Cruz handled the witnesses when they tried to soften their answers. When Cohen started hedging about who exactly is responsible, Cruz calmly walked him back. The Chinese government is controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. That's correct. Clean, clinical, effective. Here's my honest take. You can disagree with Ted Cruz on plenty of things, that's politics, but on this issue, in this hearing, he brought the facts, the framework, and the urgency this conversation needs. Because the danger with a threat this large is that people go numb to it. The numbers get so big they stop feeling real. Cruz made them feel real. A French company whose patented deep fryer got stolen and reverse engineered. A Texas space company bleeding money, defending its servers. American pilots whose aircraft designs are now flying under a different flag. This is not something we can afford to ignore. And I'm glad someone in that chamber is treating it that way. If this gave you something to think about, share it. Because the first step to fixing a problem this big is making sure people know it exists. Stay informed, stay sharp, and I'll catch you in the next one.